Well, hello good people and welcome back to the channel. First off, I hope everyone here had an amazing Thanksgiving, and one thing that I'm extremely thankful for is the opportunity to bring you fine folks a brand new review. That's right, it's Friday night, and in a few moments, I'll be sharing my thoughts and feelings on episode 7 of Ready to Love DC. Now on last week's episode, I initially thought that 2 women would be getting the boot, but to my surprise, it was only 1 woman, and that woman was Courtney. In my very first video for Ready to Love DC, I initially picked Courtney to make it to the end of the season. But after seeing Courtney turn into Pepe Le Pew around Cornelius, as well as friendzone the rest of the guys, I could see why she had to be on the chopping block. So now this week, the women will have the power to eliminate one of the men. Which one of the guys is going to bite the dust? Stay tuned to find out. The episode starts with Nephew Tommy meeting with all the women, and on a brief side note, it was nice to see Sydney and Shiloh in the scene because they were missing from last week's episode. Nephew Tommy lets all the women know that they are halfway through the season, and he asks the ladies to introduce the men of their choice to their closest friends. Now if you've seen previous seasons of Ready to Love, then you know that this part of the season can make or break a potential couple's connection, so keep that in mind. The first single is Zadia, and she introduces Naeem to her friends. He brings her a bouquet of white roses, and things seem to be going great. Her friends start to ask him questions as to why he's not married and what he's looking for in a potential partner, and Naeem seems very quick but authentic in how he answers their questions. When Naeem leaves, it seems like he's made a great impression on Zadia's friends. We then see Sabrina introducing her friends to Walter, and unlike previous seasons, it seems like the cast members of this season are allowed to bring in more friends than normal. But Sabrina's friends are firing off questions left and right to Walter that he's giving them the perfect answer each and every time. When Walter leaves, all the friends say how much they like him. We then see Sean arriving to meet Sabrina. Prior to Sean coming into the room, Sabrina briefs her friends on Sean being her second choice, and she also tells her friends about a conversation that she and Sean had. So right off the bat, the friends are on high alert, and they have an idea of who Sean might be before they even meet him. When Sean finally arrives, he is asked what he's looking for in a woman, and he essentially says he's looking for a Claire Huxtable type. And he asks Sabrina's friends for an amen, but they don't give him an answer. Now I don't know if this was the editing of the show, or if the scene played out like that, but if it did play out like that, it would have been very awkward. So one of Sabrina's friends asks Sean if he is in a position to be a provider, and he says that he can pay a bill or two. The friends then start to interrogate Sean like he's a suspect on First 48. And as Sean is on the hot seat, Sabrina is sitting back looking crazy because she essentially set him up to get blindsided. It was nice that Sabrina tried to defend Sean after her friends tore him to pieces, but by that time it was too late. When Sean left, Sabrina's friends essentially told her not to mess with him. Camille then invites Cornelius to meet her friends. Before Cornelius arrives, Camille tells her friends about Cornelius' dilemma when it comes to having sex before marriage, and her friends start to clown her. When Cornelius finally arrives, the first question they ask him is whether he's in love with Camille. Cornelius answers all of their questions, and what I like about Cornelius is that he flips the script and he starts to ask them questions about Camille. The first question he asks is why hasn't Camille been married yet, and they tell him that she has commitment issues, and it raises a ton of red flags. The scene ends shortly after that, and her friends are hesitant on giving their approval to Cornelius, mainly because he's a nice guy and he isn't what she's used to dating. We then see Sydney introducing Frank to her friends, and Frank kisses her on the lips. Frank is asked about his last relationship and the reason why they broke up. Frank handles the heat like a pro. Frank is definitely very hands-on with Sydney during this time. Frank is asked what he likes about Sydney, and he makes a joke about her forehead, but he's able to charm her friends and seemingly make a good impression. But once Frank leaves, her friends suspect that Frank is giving very pageant answers. Mumine brings one friend with her, and she wants her friend to meet 2 guys that she's interested in. The first guy that arrives is Dante. As he arrives and gets settled in, I immediately notice that Mumine is the only one asking him questions, while the friend looks on. I would consider the questions softball questions, but halfway through the scene, Walter arrives, and he joins the table. Walter's presence creates some mild tension between him and Dante, but Dante ultimately leaves. When he leaves, Walter is seen talking to Mumine and her friend for a hot second before the scene is over. It seems like Mumine's friend likes both of them. But the MVP of this episode would have to go to Phil, because he was able to get Aisha, Shiloh, and Tasia to introduce him to their friends. The editing of this part of the episode is very choppy in certain parts, but Phil essentially tells every woman and their friends that each woman is his top connection or within the top. But unfortunately, I think this may come to bite Phil later on in the season. Nephew Tommy then meets up with the women, and they go over how their experiences went with introducing the men to their friends. And as expected, Phil's name comes up multiple times, but there was no backlash from the ladies. But when it comes to the guys that the women weren't feeling, a few of them named Sean right off the bat, and surprisingly, several of the women also named Cornelius as in their bottom. This doesn't make Camille very happy at all. So Nephew Tommy leaves the women to discuss the elimination process amongst themselves. And during this time, they're pretty much arguing like a bunch of high school kids. And truth be told, these women are far too old to be arguing about a bunch of nothing. So then we get to the elimination, and we first see Zadia meet up with Cornelius. And I had a feeling that Cornelius would get the boot in retaliation for helping vote off Courtney, but the ladies keep Cornelius around and pretty much let him know that he either gets to know the rest of them or he's gone next. Tasia then meets up with Sean, and she talks to him about the issues that some of the women had with him, mainly his bad communication skills. Tasia lets Sean know that he isn't ready to love, and Sean seems overjoyed that he can finally leave the show. And to be honest, I was right there with Sean because he was blindsided, and in my opinion, he likely has a better chance of finding love outside of the show than on the show. But on a scale of 1 to 10, I'll give this episode a 5. It was just okay, but at this point in the show, I'm really expecting more drama and more interesting moments. But I think those moments will be coming next episode if you saw the previews. But this marks the end of my video. If you have any comments about the review or the episode, then feel free to leave them below, and I'll reply to each and every one of them. Until next time, stay tuned and stay safe. Peace.